Hello guys, welcome back to Rock App Studio. This is Roxanne right here in the building. So today we're going to look at something we call MVC, the MVC design pattern. And this image you see right here, it's I have to say I gotta give credit to Stanford University for it was the best illustration of the MVC design pattern I found on the internet. So this is the best illustration so far, and we're going to look at that. The MVC design pattern is a very important design pattern in the iOS development process, and actually is very important in most object-oriented programming languages. Alright, so this design pattern is the pattern that Apple uses for the development of their apps. So this is what developers go by. What it does is mean that the M stands for model, as you can see right here. This is model, and the V stands for the view, and C stands for controller. So this is a model view controller pattern. So this pattern, what it does, as you can see from the arrow right here, this is a model. So the model, we can think of the model as like a database in the background. Yeah, the apps we use and the interactions we do with the apps we use, there are a lot of things that go on in the background that we don't see. There are a lot of things that we don't see. So what a user does is just interacting with something we call the view, the interface, the user interface. This is what the user interacts with. That's the view. So all the interactions that the user does is that the user taps on a button. He doesn't know what the button does, so he just taps on the button. But the button goes into something we call the controller. This controller controls the view. This is a view controller. This is where all the logic happen, the codes, the tons and tons, and a bunch of codes we write. This is where they all happen. So the view is a user interface. What the user sees on the phone when he's using your app. That's where the view is. So the buttons, the images, the labels, all these things are in the view. And if a user taps on a button, it sends the logic signal to the controller that a button has been tapped, and the logic we've written there. So for example, if a user wants to delete an item from like a contact from the address book on his phone, he taps on a button to delete it. So what it does is that when a button is tapped, a signal is sent to the controller, which is the view controller, which controls the view. A signal is sent to this controller. This controller receives the signal and then goes to the model, which is the database running in the background. So you go to the database, search for that particular contact, and delete it from the database. And it updates the database and send the signal back to the view, and the view gets updated. So the user, that particular contact gets deleted from the database and also from the interface. So that is what happens. This is where the interaction happens. So as you can see from this arrow right here, this yellow arrow, this is a delegate. That means this controller becomes the delegate for this view, and also the data source of the view. So it is the data source and the delegate of this view control of this view where the user sees. And all this, as you can see, this is an outlet. Outlet is all the labels and the buttons we connect to the view. So we connect from the views to the controller. So when a user taps on it in an action, just a signal to this particular this controller, the target that was tapped, the view controller detects where it came from and what it wants to do, and all the logic we've written there happens. So it goes to the model, deletes a contact or adds a contact, then goes back to the view controller. The view controller updates the view. So be careful, because what you need to know is that uh, the view does not uh, connect directly with the model. The view does not deal directly with the model, but rather it does with the view controller, because the controller controls the view. So from all this arrow illustration, this arrow is from here, the outlets, the buttons, so the action is from here to this place, the target, the controller. Then also from the controller, as you can see, this green arrow also goes to the model. This is where it deletes or adds the data to the database and then updates it to the controller. The controller updates the view. That's the design part in the MVC design pattern that happens. And it's a very nice design pattern because It's make sure that the data is well centered and everything is well in action. So this is about the MVC part. I'm going to create an Xcode project to explain to it more better. I think you can understand it better from the Xcode project. So all right, so as I was saying, as I explained a while ago about MVC design part, and I just created an Xcode project to explain, I think, for better understanding. So just create a single view application. It's a single view application, and with a single view, a one view controller, and a core data. So I made sure core data was unchecked. So this is what happens. So as the MVC design part, and as explained a while ago, so the view, this is where we design the interface, where we call the user interface. This is where the user interacts with. So we can go to the object library, drag some buttons and some, we can drag some buttons onto our scene. You can drag some switches onto the scene. Hold a minute. Some switches onto the scene. You can drag some items onto this image view onto the scene and stuff like that. So this is the interface we design, and this is all that the user knows. There are certain things that go on behind the scenes in the background that the user doesn't see. All the user sees is these image views, images, interacting with them, the buttons and the switches interacting with them. So what a design pattern does here is that if, for example, if a user taps on a button like this to delete a contact from the phone, from the contact address book on the phone, all the user knows is that he's deleted, he tapped the button to delete a contact. So what happens in the background is that this view controller, which manages this view, so this is the view and this is the its controller. So these classes over here, the tons and bunch of codes we write over here, will pick the instruction, the command that the user tapped that deletes a contact from the contact or the address book. And what this lines of code that we always write in these classes is going to do is that it's going to go to the model, which is this core data or the storage. So for example, I created a contact here. So this, it will go into this core data and delete, interact with the classes of this core data and delete this contact from the core data module. So basically that's what it does. The interaction, it happens among these three MV patterns. So that's it. This the view controller. This is where the interface, there's a switch, the button, the image view, the user interact with. So if it taps a button or taps on the switch or an image, the view controller, the lines of code we've written, picks up the command or the logic and goes to the model, which is the core data, and deletes it from the database. So the same way, the same pattern, if a user wants to add a contact to the address book or save a data to the core data to the database in the background, the same way the user taps a button or taps a switch or something, the interface, then the view controller will pick the logic, the instructions we write, it will take the instructions, go to the core data and save it there. So that's the cycle it always goes. And as I said earlier on, the core data, the model does not interact with the main view. No, it never happens. They should never interact with each other. But the view controller always interacts with the model. So either the user is deleting a contact or adding a contact or saving information on anything, any data the user is saving or retrieving or deleting is between the view controller and the model. And whatever the user does in the view, the signal, the information is sent to the controller, because this is just a view, and this class over here is the view controller, which is controlling the view as we saw. So basically that's what happens. User just interacts with the interface, the user interface we design, and that's all they do. But the rest happens behind. There's a lot of logic that goes behind it. Alright guys, so don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Rock App Studio. Please don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share the video with your friends and your families. This is Roxon right here. I'm out.